Good afternoon, Seattle. Welcome back to Le Freres, Heureux, a Frasier podcast. My name is Fraser, and I'm joined by my co-host, who's no, I can't do it.
You can't keep it going.
I was gonna do another funny intro, but you started talking and it made me crack up.
I'm sorry.
It's like you threw me off.
Oh no, it's such a crime when your co-host starts talking during the introduction. And
I had a really funny intro lined up with you having been in cryogenic freezing for the last week.
Yeah.
Just a week.
Yeah.
Just a week.
I'm kept in when I'm not recording. This is the only time I'm allowed out.
I don't know why I decided to start doing those funny intros.
I don't know.
Because
they're kind of funny.
one, they're not that funny, and two, I'm not funny enough to come up with a fresh one every week.
We're also 3/4 of the way through the show.
I know. We
So
should have started a lot earlier.
It's fine. This is we can do stuff like this. This is a jumping off point, this podcast. We're gonna do more stuff after we're finished Le Frasier. Or I mean, it might have to keep going on forever because we've had the official exciting announcement that the revival's been greenlit.
Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
I don't have Paramount Plus.
I don't even know if you can get it in this country.
I don't know if you can.
I think it's region locked.
I don't know what, because things like Hulu, they have, is it Star here? That they show on, so you can get it through Disney Plus.
You can get Hulu stuff on Disney Plus.
So I wonder if they'll do the same kind of thing, or if they'll keep it as,
I don't know,
like US only, and then
maybe
we'll have to wait, or do it illegally.
Yeah. Those are the two options.
I don't know. I'm kind of trying to hold out judgment as best I can, but I don't know.
I'm definitely not convinced that it's going to be any good, especially considering they're going with it's even more Frasier centric and less of an ensemble. So they're introducing new characters, and then they're going to have the returning cast of, I guess, Roz, Daphne, and Niles potentially in like feature
sort
episodes,
guest roles or something. Yeah,
like every so often they're going to come back.
I guess the issue, like one of the main issues, is I don't want to know where they are nowadays.
No, I
kind of like not knowing that. Once the show ended, everyone has their own idea of how everyone ended up, and I kind of like that. I don't want confirmation one way or another what's happened to them. And I just, it's one of those shows that just doesn't need a reboot. Most of these shows that have been rebooted in the last few years,
very few have done well.
Even the ones that have done well, I still have this kind of grudge against them because they are unnecessary. And a lot of them, it almost feels lazy to attribute like new stories to existing characters. Like it surely it just takes a little bit more to adapt that into a new series or a new movie or whatever.
Yeah. Just
reusing existing plots and existing characters to sell your screenplay. It feels cheap. I don't know. It's
we'll have to wait and see.
They're not all bad. So yeah, I'm crossing my fingers that this won't be one of the bad ones. But
it's going to be more for us to talk about.
That's true. True.
It does mean that
we'll have to reboot the podcast.
We're going to have to reboot Le Frasier right along with rebooting Frasier, which will be fun.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. For
now, we are at the end of season 8. So coming up on last 3 seasons to go. I was very, very surprised at how highly I ranked this disc.
So was I.
It's actually a really, really solid ending to the season, especially considering how low we've ranked the rest of it.
Yeah. It's not. I still don't think I've ranked it particularly high, but I went into season 8 expecting me to have a very low average, like across the season, and I haven't. It's been pretty mid, which is good. I'm pleasantly surprised. I think I just kind of get in my head that the whole season is crap, but then going in and looking like episode by episode, there are a lot that are stronger than I think they are.
Yeah,
and then that really bumps up.
This disc especially, I think, is going to raise the average a little bit.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. Shall we kick off?
Yeah, I guess so.
Why not? That's what we're here for, after all.
Yep.
We start this disc with Daphne Returns. After a brief spell of absence, Jane Leaves is back. She has given birth. I don't actually know anything about her family. I was going to say baby's name or
No,
her family. I don't really know.
I don't know either.
I don't know if it's knowledge that we just don't know, or if she's made it public or not.
I have no idea.
No idea.
I imagine it's one of those things that must be not like a secret,
Yeah.
but just not, unless the child also goes into acting, which I guess isn't impossible.
Well, it's more. There's some sort of celebrities that like to keep their personal lives under wraps. They don't announce the names of their kids or partners and things like that. Which, fair enough. Their call. Don't want them to be in the public eye. It's totally cool. Should have checked if Jane Leeves was one of those people or not.
Maybe.
But there you go. She has lost the weight that she's gained. In story, she's been away at the fat farm, as Martin calls it.
Getting her master's at the Fat Academy.
And in life, obviously, she's post-pregnancy and just lost the pregnancy weight. And I think she comes back noticeably different in terms of the character. I think Daphne does have a slightly more distanced tone from Niles. I think going in the first half of the season, she's very much honeymoon stage of the relationship. They're very much in love, and she's all over him and loves the fact that he's been pining for her all these years. And then coming back, even though they don't discuss it yet, she seems quite distanced. The first scene we see her is Niles having picked her up and driving her home. And just the conversation they have there, it becomes quite tense. There's definitely a bit of friction between the two of them.
Yeah.
And it's coming from Daphne's side that she's not kind of jumping all the way back in.
Yeah.
And I quite like how that's played. I like that Jane Leeves has come back and decided to give a bit more depth to it, because you could quite easily just bring her back and that's that. But both through the writing on the plot and Jane Leeves' performance in this episode, you get this more nuanced take on the character. Sounds very pretentious when I say that, but it's true. It's true. Yeah. She definitely nails these little subtle mannerisms when she comes back and discusses with everyone and talks with Niles and everything. It quite quickly goes south.
Yeah.
Because of Niles, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Which is very rare.
Niles doesn't often make a tit of himself, but
he does not.
He really does here.
They get back. They're throwing a welcome back party for Daphne. And she's already a bit on edge after the car journey. Niles is kind of questioning her, particularly her relationship with the therapist that they had on staff, Gloria. Doesn't know what Niles is like under his breath, like, oh, my patients call me Dr. Crane, but whatever.
Yeah.
And he's very sort of those sort of snippy, sarcastic comments, and they just get worse and worse, especially when Daphne's kind of saying thank you to everyone, and he makes a comment about Dr. Gloria's technique of having love goggles. So like sort of rose-colored glasses, I think is more common phrase for it, more well-known phrase.
Yeah.
And she tells him to leave, and it's very tense, that scene. It's very it doesn't come out of nowhere, but you feel it. You're like, okay, right, she's not happy and he's behaving, he's not right. He's not right. And yeah, they go their separate ways for the day, and we have this kind of like moment of reflection. They have this. It's not. They don't even have an argument. It's just Daphne says, "I'd like you to leave now," and Niles leaves, and there's very much this air about the scene that you're kind of like, oh, okay, what's going on? And we get the next sort of act, I suppose, is Frasier going to check up on his brother, making sure he's okay, and we have this really, really great sequence of flashbacks, sort of intercut, like green screened, with current Frasier and Niles over the top of it, having their discussion and going over the memories, and it's all about how Daphne's been put on a pedestal. Yeah. And Niles is trying to talk himself out of it, but I think Frasier's kind of on point that he sees her as this sort of perfect woman, and he's worried that she won't live up to his image of her now that they're in this very real relationship, and she's the same. But because she gave up so much to be with him, she overate, and she had this very physical reaction to it, whereas Niles was kind of suppressing it. Yeah.
He was just in denial.
Yeah. In denials.
Yeah. Yeah. And to the point where he didn't even notice that she had gained weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting thing to be exploring, that this idea of like absolutely idealizing someone. Like, so many shows are going to spend seasons building up a will they, won't they relationship. And then they either jump into it and everything's perfect and everything's great and they love each other and whatever. And that's just it for the rest of the season, or well, for the rest of the whole rest of the show, probably. Or everything isn't perfect and it's just a big conflict and then they break up.
Yeah.
And it's really good seeing, this is pretty unique, I think, in that they explore, sometimes you'll pine after someone for a long time, get in a relationship with them, and it won't be at all like you thought it was going to be. But that isn't a bad thing. It's just that they're not this fake version of that you've created in your head.
Yeah.
They're just a real person like anyone else, and you need to embrace that. And I think that's a really good message, and it's a really good thing to talk about, especially in like a piece of fiction like a sitcom that doesn't explore stuff like that. You know, most shows will have this totally romanticized idea of a relationship, and it's good having this that's a little bit more.
It's right down to earth and realistic. Yeah, you know, we spoke at the start of the season about how, you know, after the cliffhanger of them getting together, they explore the real life ramifications of a situation like that. What would happen if you leave someone at the altar? If you break off a marriage after a week, you know, like they do explore all that, and I like that they're not afraid to do it.
Yeah.
The final scene is Niles kind of having accepted Frasier's words and going to apologize to Daphne, and his way of doing it is to kind of tell her that she's not perfect.
Yeah.
Which he maybe could have been a little bit more tactful in his words.
Very funny though.
But it is very funny, yeah. And he says, you know, you're not a very good cook. I don't like your cooking. And I don't think you're psychic. And kind of, he's quite, if it wasn't for his intentions, it would just be downright insulting. But his intention is obviously, I see that you're not a perfect person. I know you have your flaws, but I love you anyway. Yeah. Kind of thing. And they have this sort of
their first fight, really.
Yeah, first proper
fight.
Because
they're not living in the little honeymoon phase denial bubble where they think they're the ones perfect.
Yeah, they have their little argument, and Daphne has a few shots back at him about it being too short and being pretentious. It's it's a really good scene, and it ends with them finally consummating the relationship, and that's the end of it.
Yeah. I do really love the scene when they start arguing and they just like flying back and forth, and because Niles sort of starts saying like, "Oh, I think you're a terrible cook," and then Daphne's insulted by that, and Niles is like, "Oh, well, I thought this was what you wanted." It's like, I can't read minds, you know. No, not that you can either.
By the way, neither can you.
And she's like, "What? You don't think I'm psychic?" And he says, "Not if you thought I liked your cooking."
Yes.
It's very funny.
I think one of my favorite lines from the season, one that really sticks out, is when he does first say, "I don't think you're a good cook," and Martin and Frasier are just leaving, and Frasier's kind of like ushering him out, and as he leaves, Martin turns around to Niles and says like, "God bless you, son." And it's like, he's finally saying what everyone's been thinking for all these years. It's just hysterical. It's again one that sides a little bit more on the serious topics, but for the first one in a wee while, I think it's one that absolutely nails it. Yeah, I think it does it absolutely flawlessly. I think this episode is really a highlight of the show, let alone this season. I gave it full marks.
Yeah.
Don't know about you.
5 cupper for you. I gave it a 4.
A 4. Okay.
I am very fond of the episode, and I think it's really well done, but I don't know if I could quite give it a 5.
I think it's... I personally think it's justified in a 5 because of how it treats Daphne and Niles' relationship. I think it's, as you said, this whole like real life exploration of what would happen and just differentiating itself from other sitcoms is so unique and just enjoyable to explore.
Yeah.
Not to mention we get some great lines, some really funny interactions. And Jane Leeves, I think, does a great job as well. As not, she's back to a regular cast, but she feels very much like the main focus in this episode.
Yeah.
Almost like a guest star. Just in the way that it all revolves around her and she's giving a great performance. I think it's just... I struggle to find fault in it, to be honest.
It's interesting how you talk about how it's different from other sitcoms, because there was something that I was going to mention. I was going to mention it at the start, but it actually ties in really well with this. This episode was directed by Pamela Fryman.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I know the name.
Who also directed Sliding Frasers, along with various other episodes of Frasier. And we were talking about Sliding Frasers, how it feels very unique, because the style of like the cutting back and forth and the way it's edited and the way it's written, and it's this really unique premise that's totally different. And one of our listeners commented on YouTube, and I wasn't aware of this, that Pamela Fryman was the main director on How I Met Your Mother.
How I Met Your Mother. I did know that, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought that was really interesting, because having watched How I Met Your Mother, you can really see similarities between the style of How I Met Your Mother and Sliding Frasers. Actually, I think it's something about like how it's edited and the jump cuts and
yeah,
things.
You're not wrong, actually.
And just that slightly more surreal style, how it's like exploring it's not just doing a typical format of like showing everything as it is. It's sort of jumping about a bit more, showing things in a more unique way that How I Met Your Mother did. And I think this episode as well kind of does it, like in the shots. It's actually won an Emmy for editing. Which is unsurprising, because I think the shots where you've got Frasier and Niles green screened into,
I think it's
like,
fantastic,
the night that Daphne and Niles met, and then that Moon Dance, and then First Date, the scene when they're singing in the kitchen, really, really very well done.
Sorry, I just swallowed water the wrong way.
Yeah.
Had a bit of a coughing fit.
Okay.
You were saying
it's
about
fine. We'll do a hard
Pam Fryman.
Yeah, so I think this episode is similar to Sliding Frasers, really uniquely done, and I think you can see how that then went on to the style that's in How I Met Your Mother with what Pamela Fryman did.
Yeah, I didn't know that, actually. That's quite...
It is interesting.
I was going to say surprising, but now that you point it out, it's actually really not surprising at all.
It's something that I didn't know and really interesting to learn, but it really makes a lot of sense when you look back at the style of, like I say, I think Sliding Frasers more so than this, but certainly in both of them.
Yeah.
And I need to go and have a look at what other episodes that Pamela Fryman's done to see if it's...
Yeah, maybe keep an eye on that and see.
Because I think she did a few, kind of starting around season 4 or 5, she did quite a few episodes, so...
I wonder if we could guess which ones she did.
I don't know. I'd be interested to see.
Well, yeah. Okay. I'm curious. What marks this episode down for you?
I'm not really sure. I think it's just kind of... I don't really know. I was going to say the conflict between Niles and Daphne, but that really is like the crux of the episode, and I don't really think it brings it down. I think it's partly just seeing Niles act like a bit of an ass.
Yeah.
I don't really...
It is a bit... It just... feel a bit out of character.
It's a bit jarring.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily a bad thing. I do think it works. Like, I don't think Niles is really that unjustified in being quite so defensive. I mean, he does say, like, the only thing that... Like, he's getting a lot of criticism from Daphne through Gloria, the therapist, and he's getting a bit of criticism from Frasier as well. And he kind of says, like, the only thing that he's guilty of is loving Daphne a lot.
Yeah.
And his like idealizing her and putting her up on the pedestal isn't healthy, but I don't think he's really that unjustified in being so defensive and being a bit of an ass about the fact that he's suddenly getting this blame.
Yeah, he could definitely have been a little bit more tactful.
Yeah, certainly. Like he's not being particularly nice.
Yeah,
but I think you can see where it's coming from with him being quite so defensive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just that. I think it's just seeing Niles being a bit of an ass. I just don't really enjoy watching.
That's fair. We do love Niles. It's upsetting to see him not in a good space. Good. I don't think there are any guest callers.
No.
Even in this whole disc.
No, not as far as I know. We've got a couple of good guest stars.
Couple of great guest stars.
Well, we've got one. Yeah. Well, you know what? We'll talk about that when we actually get to the episode.
We'll get to that.
But we're going on to the next episode now, which has a great guest star.
The Wizard and... Sorry, carry on.
A returning guest star.
And
a great guest star in his own right as well, I think.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. The Wizard and Roz is the return of Dr. Tewksbury.
Yep.
He is still mentoring Frasier here and there. I don't know how consistently. It's kind of implied that they've been having sessions between the last time we saw him and now.
They're kind of having this like informal therapy.
Yeah. And they end up, I think it was off screen actually, they're talking about Nervosa, and he shows up one day when Frasier is having coffee with Roz. And he needs to leave and take Niles away. We'll get to the B plot. I don't want to...
The B plot is very funny.
We'll do the both separately. But yeah, because of the B plot, Frasier needs to leave and take Niles away. So Dr. Tewksbury is left with Roz. And classic trope here of main character leaves and two friends end up getting together despite their differences, which I really hate. I really hate that trope. It's so lazy.
Yeah.
It's so cliched now, and just I really dislike it. Despite that, it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So I kind of give it a pass this episode, but we see Roz and Dr. Tewksbury hit it off really well. They actually start dating beyond just like sleeping together. I think it's implied that they're together for a wee while.
Yeah.
And Frasier's obviously a bit funny about this. He doesn't like seeing both his best friend and mentor together. And it kind of eventually turns out through some disturbing therapy sessions of Dr. Tewksbury in Roz's bath gown.
Roz shows up wearing the dressing gown. Dr. Tewksbury wearing Roz's dressing gown.
That they kind of whittle down that it's because Frasier's almost jealous of him in a way, that he didn't think that Roz was interested in more intellectual and I hate using the words like high class and low class because it's not really the case, but just more of an intellectual figure, I suppose, is just the easiest way to put it. Roz likes her men typically more handsome and not quite as smart.
Yeah.
And Frasier's a bit taken aback by their relationship because he's like, well, why not me?
Yeah.
Which, on the one hand, a little bit selfish, but on the other hand, I kind of understand where he's coming from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm not... I don't know. I mean, I think I have plenty of friends that I'm like, I wouldn't be offended if they started dating someone that was similar to me, because I would be like, why would you not fancy me? Why would you want to be with them instead? I don't know. It doesn't seem like a valid thing to be upset about.
I think even in the episode it shows he's not upset by it. He's just a bit taken aback,
I guess, yeah.
Which I can kind of understand. I think if you've got a good friend who you've been friends with for 8 years now, who's never really shown any interest in the qualities that you give off, you know, to have then her be quite smitten by someone very similar to you would be a bit, shocking, I suppose. And maybe not, upsetting, I guess. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of implies that Frasier does have feelings for her here. A little bit. But it's more... I think it would more just be, is there something wrong with me?
Yeah.
Like, if I was in that situation, I would be kind of like, well, he's so similar to me in so many ways. What is it about... What does he have that I don't?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thing. So I can kind of get that, being a little bit upset by it. I think the way that Frasier handles it in the end, when Roz tries to make him feel better, and he gets very smug and kind of makes fun of her for it, which I think's just unnecessary. But the whole thing just kind of, it's not relatable, but I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I understand where he's coming from.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
For me, that ending and the conversation between Frasier and Roz is really the thing that stops this episode from being perfect.
Really?
I think, or at least stops it from being a 5-cupper.
Okay.
Little glimpse into how I'm going to rank this one. Like, I think it's a really strong episode beyond just how that little plot is resolved. I just don't think it works. Like, I get Frasier feeling that way. I just don't really like the way that they settle it between the two of them, with Roz kind of saying like, oh, but I did really fancy you when we first met, and then Frasier getting weird about it and then leaving.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many better ways that they could have handled that situation.
See, I always thought, the way that Roz describes it, I always thought that she was just trying to make him feel better.
Yeah, probably.
I always got the impression that she never really fancied him, and she was just saying that to stop him questioning it any further, basically.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we see how the two of them interact when they first meet.
Yeah.
And she tries to switch off to another show. She's clearly not into him.
Yeah.
Even in like after a few months of them working together, like in the pilot, they don't seem even that friendly, let alone like there would be any kind of romantic thing going on.
Well,
who knows?
Who knows what could happen?
Mm-hmm.
We do.
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
I think that the B plot totally overshadows the A plot in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Despite being a little bit shorter, I think it really... This is where this episode excels.
I think the B plot's really good.
Yeah. We've got Niles and Daphne, who have been kind of getting back on track after their little tiff and reconciliation and whatever in the last episode.
They've been kickboxing.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because David Hyde Pierce does actually kickbox.
Oh, does he?
In real life, yeah, as a hobby.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem the type.
No, he doesn't, but he does kickbox,
Okay.
which is fun.
Good. Does Jane leaves?
I don't know.
Oh.
Not as far as I'm aware.
Okay. Either way.
Yeah.
And they're coming back from a kickboxing like retreat. It's like a weekend away or something. I don't really know. It's implied that they were away, was it not?
I assumed they were just like at a gym.
At a class. I don't know. I think Martin says like, how was the weekend?
I don't know. Maybe
I'm imagining
that. Not that I remember.
I don't know why. I always think that they were away for like
They might have been.
Whatever. It's irrelevant completely. Yeah. And Niall, Daphne has a psychic prediction about Niles that he's going to hurt himself at Nervosa.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes him promise that he won't go into Nervosa. That kind of ties into our A plot when Frasier meets Dr. Tewksbury and Niles shows up outside and he wants to come in and get a coffee and then he wants to come in and chat to Dr. Tewksbury, but he promised Daphne and he's still, oh no. And he eventually does give in and he comes and sits down. And as soon as he does, Daphne shows up outside, gives him a fright, and he bruises his patella.
He bumps his knee.
To which Frasier then takes him off to the hospital, and that kicks off the A plot. But this leads to more of a discussion about whether Niles actually believes that Daphne has psychic ability or not, and they have this back and forward, and it's like Niles is very much of the opinion that, well, nothing would have happened if you hadn't shown up. She's like, well, but I did show up and you did hurt yourself, so my prediction did come true. And it's very like, what? Who do you believe here? So they decide to get a scientific analysis done, quote unquote scientific analysis done of Daphne and see if she actually does have psychic ability. Cue guest spot by Fisher Stevens, who I look at him so differently after
Short Circuit,
Aziz Ansari's skit on him about Short Circuit. But he is very funny. He's a really great sort of character actor. He's been in a lot of guest spots over the years. And he always is the highlight of the episode. He's always great.
He's been in Succession more recently. I didn't realize he was in that
as a regular.
I think so. In at least in a few episodes.
I think recently he was in It's Always Sunny. He's a guest spot in It's Always Sunny. He's in, which is very funny.
I can imagine him being really good in It's Always Sunny.
He's definitely the type that gets that kind of humor.
But
he's great in this as well, actually. He's
like his character, and it's really funny.
Guest star. Comes in as this sort of very self-aware scientist, and he sort of makes jokes at Niles, like, so what are you a professor of? Spookology. He does this little claw in his hand. It's like
oh man, I'd love to have a doctorate in spookology. That'd be great.
I love the joke he says at the end as well. It's like, oh, it's fine, the dog told me a few funny jokes while you were chatting. And he's like, I'm kidding, they weren't that funny. There's something just really dry,
really deadpan
about his wit. It's really good. But he's there and he's doing these tests for Daphne, and while they're waiting for the results to kind of analyze against other control groups or whatever, Daphne and Niles have this little discussion about where the psychic abilities came from, and she talks about, is it Grammy Moon used to tell her that only the Moon woman had this psychic ability, and she was brought up in a house full of boys, so this made her feel so special, and it's sort of a connection to her family. And you see that Niles he feels quite guilty for putting her through this,
because he definitely thinks that Fisher Stevens, I can't remember what the doctor's name is, Doctor something or other, is immediately going to turn around and say, you're not psychic. Your results don't show anything above the average, just luck level of predicting things. And realizes I can't let her lose this connection, which is nice. It's the first time we've really gone in depth with, well, I guess it's not the first time we've had an episode surrounding Daphne's psychic abilities. I suppose we've got what's the one with Visions of Daphne? We kind of talk about how it's, not in quite the same way, but we've had this episode where it's exploring, are her visions actually just her fears sort of manifesting themselves?
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
Or are they actually legitimate? And then here we get a little bit more in the backstory and why she thinks she's psychic and where it comes from. And so a different angle, but it's interesting exploring that.
I really like that they don't reveal as well. I like not knowing. Because I think that would just take the fun out of it. Even if it revealed that she did have above average psychic ability, it's kind of well, we don't need to know that. It ruins the mystique and takes away that kind of that humor of whether or not she is actually psychic or not. So I like that they don't do it. I keep comparing it to other shows. I think that's just because this show is just superior to every other show ever made. But it's true that other shows do have kind of these little quirks with characters or little mysterious things, and then they do reveal them towards the end of the show or towards the end of a series or whatever, and it's kind of well, I'd rather not know. I'd rather just it be a mystery.
More fun.
There's nothing wrong with it being a mystery. You don't need to tie everything off.
The speculation, especially if you have I can't think of any examples off the top of my head. It doesn't really fit with the psychic abilities, but kind of you build up that you're not supposed to know, so people make loads of different jokes suggesting that it could be different things, and then in the end they have to try and explain it away, and it just never works.
It's like
things don't fit.
It's like if they ever tried to reveal Maris.
Yeah,
You couldn't do it.
you couldn't.
Because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I was thinking of another one. Like, if we're talking about other shows, How I Met Your Mother with Pamela Fryman. Like, they have loads of running jokes.
Yeah.
And there was a few of them throughout the show. I won't go into too much detail because I don't want to bore everyone. But, like, there are a few running jokes that they have that are surrounding mystery and, like, unknowns. And the whole joke is that we don't know what actually happened.
Yeah.
And then towards the end of the show, one by one, they tie them all off. And by the end of the show, there's no mystery. We know all of these jokes that we've had, like, 8 series?
Yeah.
7, 8 series of these running jokes of mystery and what actually happened that night. And they reveal them all.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, why? Because that's never... The reality is never going to be as funny as what people have in their head. Mm-hmm. So why ruin that for your audience?
Yeah. There was one that was actually explained recently because they did How I Met Your Father as like a sequel series that has a couple of crossovers, and they had one of the episodes in like the first season. There's a joke about Ted blacks out drunk and wakes up with like a pineapple, and he's like, "Where did the pineapple come from?" And they never explain it.
They do.
But then they explain it in. Do they explain it during the show?
They explain it in the show
because there was a joke.
That was one of the ones I was thinking of.
Kyle MacLachlan's character, the captain.
Yeah.
Is that in How I Met Your Mother?
It's in How I Met Your Mother.
I thought it was in How I Met Your Father that they explained it.
In the last season, they explain.
There's a joke, like he had it sitting on his porch and Ted stole it.
That's in How I Met Your Mother.
But that's just such a like anticlimax
exactly.
joke, like, oh, he just picked it up on the street.
Yeah. It's like,
just such
it's so much funnier thinking that like he stole it from the shop, that it fell out of the sky and landed in his hand. Like it
could have been anything.
It could be anything, and it's so much funnier not knowing.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's why this show's so good, because we get these things like Maris, things like the psychic ability that we don't know, and it's just really enjoyable to speculate.
Yeah,
it would completely ruin it if we ever found out.
Oh God, could you imagine if they did if in like the revival of Frasier they have someone come in to play Maris?
You couldn't.
I know, but could you imagine if they tried? That'd be horrible.
That would ruin it for me.
Yeah, 100%.
That would ruin it for me.
100%.
Okay.
Right.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
The Wizard and Roz. What did you think?
So I give it a 4. I think it's really good. I think Rene Auberjonois back as Dr. Tewksbury is great. I think he's really funny, especially seeing him like interact with people other than Frasier, because in Frasier's Edge we only saw the two of them in the office together and that was it. I really like some of the jokes about Daphne's psychic abilities, like Frasier's kind of making fun of her when Niles refuses to go into into Nervosa,
and
he kind of says like, "Oh, it's bad Mugumbo for you to enter," which is maybe a little bit inappropriate. I don't know if that's maybe a bit of a sketchy joke.
That's kind of like bad juju.
Bad juju. I don't know if that's okay to say either. To be honest,
is it not?
I don't know.
I thought it was just a generic.
It probably is.
Sort of.
Hopefully, it's not offensive.
Bad vibes kind of.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, and I really like Fisher Stevens as a guest. I really like just that whole plot. I think is really good. But yeah, basically it's everything. Like I'm not big on how the Frasier Roz things rounded off at the end, but everything else I think is pretty great.
Yeah, same for me. 4 out of 5. I ranked it a little bit lower actually when I was first going through my rankings, and then I started thinking about the Daphne and Niles plot, and Fisher Stevens as well as a guest star is really great. And the depth that they go into about their relationship and sort of seeing them interacting and having this quite heartfelt discussion about her psychic abilities, it's really nice and it's really well done as well. So I bumped it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, glad we're in agreement for one of the very few times this season.
Yeah.
I hope we're in agreement for the next one, but I don't know what we think. So we've got a 2-parter next. I think we'll treat them separately. They are technically 2 separate episodes.
I'm happy to treat them separately.
Yeah, cool. We start with Semi-Decent Proposal. Not quite sure what that relates to.
Well, I guess Indecent Proposal.
Oh, Indecent Proposal. That's a movie, right?
It's a film. It may well have been a book or something first. I don't know
what it's about.
No idea. I'm sorry.
We're so bad at researching these things.
We are. We are.
We just like talking about Frasier.
Yeah.
So we've got some great guest stars introduced in this episode. All of them recurring in one way or another. We've got the return of Lorna Lenley, who is now Lana Lenley.
Yeah.
Or is it the other way around?
I guess Lana Gardner.
Lana Gardner, I guess, technically,
they don't really say her surname.
Yeah.
Although we hear her son's surname, who is they're presumably the same.
Gardner. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do kind of retcon a bit of her character, but she is still the same character. She still had that relationship with Frasier, still played by Jean Smart, which is incredible.
Yeah.
And yeah, still has that same brash personality.
The same edge.
Yeah. We're introduced to Claire, played by Patricia Clarkson, who again, phenomenal actor.
She's great.
She's, I don't know what people would know her from. Shutter Island. She's got quite a big role in.
Easy A. She plays Emma Stone's mum in Easy A. She's really funny in that. She was in a couple of episodes of Parks and Rec. She was one of Ron Swanson's ex-wives.
Right. She's a really, really great actor, and I think she balances comedy and drama really well. Yeah. She's one of the few, same as Jean Smart, to be fair.
Yeah.
I think they both have these really...
They come across very real, and Jean Smart in this episode more than the episode she was introduced.
Yeah.
You really get like a feel for what the character's like, and like the kind of, she's not having a great time and clearly needs like a friend there, and Frasier is in the opportunity to do that, but he doesn't really want to, and that's kind of that's part of the thing that's going on with them.
We've also got the introduction of Kirby, who is Lana's son, played by Brian Klugman, who I learned today co-wrote Tron Legacy.
Co-wrote Tron Legacy?
Did not know that.
Good for Brian.
I know him as he's got a couple of supporting roles in Cloverfield and in House. He's in an episode of House. He's not been in a lot of things, but I really love him.
Yeah. He was in Bones. He had like a recurring role in Bones, which I haven't seen, but I saw on IMDb. He was in Bones.
I think the role of Kirby is just amazing. He's one of my favorite guest stars in the show.
Yeah, he's one of those characters that a lot of people tend to kind of dunk on because they look at it as this like recurring role at this point in the show that I think as the show is kind of starting to go downhill, in the same way that people kind of look at like Simon and Gertrude coming back and some of the other recurring stars that we get in like season 10, and people don't really like him for that just because the episodes that he's in aren't necessarily as good.
Yeah.
But I, rewatching it now, really like Kirby's character a lot more than I did when I first watched it. I think he's really funny.
I think he comes back later. I'll spoil that little thing for you. He's got 2 episodes, I think. Later, he's in the next. He's in like the final 4 episodes of this. Oh no, he's only in these 2.
Oh yeah, he's not in.
He's only in these 2
right
episodes.
Enough. He's not. He's only in these 2 episodes, but then he's in the first, or like somewhere in the first couple in the next season.
But then he's got,
and then he has a couple of additional. He has a few more after that,
recurring episodes.
I think he's really good. He's very funny.
He's proper, like, not quite slapstick. Very like stoner comedy style that's just so contrary to Frasier, and I think that's why it works so well.
It does.
I think he's just incredible.
Yeah.
But right, we'll get to that. So Frasier and Niles are out DVD shopping, I think.
Yeah, they're buying a DVD
player. And both being the technological illiterates that they are. They sort of get help from this lovely woman in the queue called Claire, who turns out to be out shopping with Lana. They're good friends, and Lana's reintroduced. Claire's introduced as well. She invites Frasier to bring Lana to a surprise birthday party, and we get a lovely little scene of them kind of reconnecting a little bit. and Lana's making a lot of jokes about like Frasier not getting any. It's just a platonic friend date. And then she does this kind of sort of like a semi breakdown because it's her birthday and no one's remembered.
Yeah.
And then she's like, actually, I'm glad that no one's remembered because I'm not in the mood for a birthday party. And it's this Frasier driving back and forward, deciding whether to go to the restaurant or not, and he eventually gives up. And it's like, right, there's a surprise party for you. Do you want to go or not? She's like, oh, they're throwing a surprise party for me? And you ruined it?
It's so funny, but I would absolutely do the same thing because you really don't know. I think it's written in a really good way where you can't tell from what she's saying whether she would actually want to go or not. Because in some, she kind of says like, I don't want to hear anyone mention that it's my birthday because I don't want to acknowledge it because I'm not in the mood. And then also talking about part of the reason that she's not in the mood is because no one else seems to have remembered, and like it's her ex-husband's getting remarried.
Yeah.
And
what a dick, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Getting remarried on your ex's birthday after running off with her. No. Like, that's shocking behavior. But we eventually get to the surprise party, and it's, you know what? Credit to Frasier in this episode. I think he's really lovely in this episode. He gives up his chance with Claire. She goes off with another man because Frasier wants to go and help Lana. She seems really quite upset and not coping well, so Frasier goes and makes her feel better and everything. And it's really lovely, and I think Jean Smart just such a great guest star.
She is.
She's just so good in this.
Yeah, she really sells it.
And the two of them together, I think it's annoying because Claire as a character is so better suited for Frasier, but as actors, Jean Smart and Kelsey Grammer just bounce off each other so well.
They do.
So we hit a compromise with Lana, saying that she knows Claire and she knows that her relationship with this other guy won't last. Can't remember what his name is.
I want to say Dan.
Dave.
Something
Brian.
like
I can't remember. And she knows them. She knows it won't last. So she offers to help Frasier get in there, get his foot in the door. Is that a phrase when it comes to people?
It shouldn't be.
I don't think it should be. No, never mind. Forget I said that. And in exchange for Frasier tutoring Kirby, her son, and the first part of the episode ends with Frasier tutoring Kirby, and we're introduced to this complete moron has no idea about anything, no clue. You try to teach him US history.
I do love it.
Good.
It's that like, right, gets the big book out and he's like, right, which chapter are you on? And goes, whoa, is that book mine?
Yes.
He's so funny.
He is. He's
such a slacker, and it's just, it really like, yeah.
It's just watching Frasier's like blood pressure rise while going over all this stuff. Yeah, it's really a great opening episode. We have a little scene with the other characters as well. Martin's trying to install the DVD player. He's got Roz and Niles and Daphne around. He can't get it working, and so Roz suggests playing a game where they all tell each other deep, dark secrets, which doesn't really sound like much of a game. It just sounds a bit...
It's just kind of like Never Have I Ever, but skipping to like the juiciest stuff.
Yeah.
But that's going to take like 2 minutes.
I know, it's weird.
It's not really a game, but there you go.
They all tell really like tame stuff. Niles beat up a kid with rickets.
Rickets and a smart mouth.
Yeah. Daphne stole a toy from the shop and then returned it because she felt guilty. And then Roz tries to get out of it, kind of, by saying like, you guys are too tame for this. You're not ready to hear my secret. And Martin's like, listen, I was a cop. I was in the war. I've seen things. You can tell me. I can handle it. So we see Roz go over and whisper something in his ear, and just his face just like drops. and he gets up and leaves.
Just walks out without saying anything and like looks
back like absolutely terrified.
Horrified. Very funny.
It's a really good scene.
Very, very funny.
And I love that again, another thing, I love not knowing what it is.
Yeah.
I love that we've never shown.
It could be anything.
So we can only speculate about what kind of shenanigans Roz has been up to. Yeah, it's really great. And it's a really great opening episode. Yeah. I have to say, I love it. Love it to bits. And that's why I gave it a full 5 cups.
Yeah. See, I didn't.
No.
I didn't.
No.
As much as I love Patricia Clarkson being introduced, I love that we're getting more of Jean Smart. I really like that plot, and I like Kirby being introduced. I just don't necessarily think that there's much in it that's particularly funny or interesting, and the B plot when they're setting up the DVD player, it winds me up that there's a B plot about them setting up a DVD player, as if setting up a DVD player doesn't take 2 minutes. And it's like, oh, I need my screwdriver and some wire strippers, and I'm following the manual. And it's like, you plug...
But he's not following the manual.
But he is.
That's the
he's
joke.
Reading it.
No, he's not, because that's what he says. Remember, there's the joke that Daphne says, like, do you want me to give you the manual? And he's like, I don't need the manual. I'm a man. Men don't need manuals. We don't follow instructions.
Still.
It's not quite as...
Yeah. Not quite that much.
As bad as that. But.
I don't know. I give it a 3. I think it's relatively strong, but it's not. I don't think it's really above average for Frasier. I think it's really quite. It's like it's good in the way that any other episode of Frasier is good.
I think this does definitely err on the higher side.
Yeah.
Even as just a standard episode,
Mm-hmm.
I think it does really, really well to kind of establish all of these different plots. And even as a single part episode,
yeah,
I think it would still be 5 cups for me, to be honest.
Fair enough.
Full 5 cups. Fine. Well, we'll just get on to the second part and see what you think of that then, shall we? A Passing Fancy is the name of the second part.
Yeah.
We're continuing almost directly on from the previous episode. Kirby's getting his tutoring. Frasier's enjoying having a mentee. Is that what did we decide it was called?
A protege.
That's the one. Yeah. I knew we had this conversation.
We did.
When we spoke about.
Yeah, I don't
Dr.
think
Tewksbury
mentee is a word.
No, I don't either. And I'm pretty sure we said that last time.
Yeah.
As well. Like, my memory only goes so far back. I just roll with it, you know.
Yeah.
I hit the same beats every now and then. Just deal with it. Yeah, so it's all kind of just following on directly. We're introduced to a little bit of a say spanner in the works. Not really. Roz comes in. She wants some time off to get tickets for Bruce Springsteen.
Mm-hmm.
She wants to take the day off and wait in line to buy tickets or whatever. And Frasier won't let her, which is it seems a bit cruel. But
I mean, yeah,
whatever.
Assuming it's time enough in advance, then if she wants a day off, she should be able to get a day off whenever she likes.
Don't see why not. So that kind of allows us to introduce motivation for Kirby to get his passing grade, which in turn is higher than what they had initially agreed on with Lana, because Frasier goes behind Lana's back and tries to score a date with Claire himself.
Yeah.
He hears that she's broken up with Dan. Did we decide Dan?
Whatever his name was.
And bumps into her along at Nervosa, and he asks her out, and she says yes. So he tries to bail on Kirby, and as he's doing this, Lana gets a phone call from Claire, leaves a message saying, "Oh, I bumped into Frasier today. He asked me out, but he seemed very eager, and I'm not sure if I should or not." And Lana kind of sees this as an opportunity to one-up it.
Yeah.
She's like, now, that D that Kirby needed to get, that seems a little low for me. I think he needs a C. And Frasier's like, no, please. How about a B? And Frasier's like, oh my God. It's like, keep going, and I'll go for an A. I love the little negotiation that they have.
So funny.
So in order for him to keep his date with Claire, he needs to get Kirby a B in history. And yeah, in order to motivate him when he's out... Is it at Nervosa they're at?
Yeah.
Or are they around at the house? Yeah, they're at Nervosa. And Roz comes in and... Actually, is that the point that she says about Bruce Springsteen?
No,
or is that not earlier in the episode?
No, it's later in the episode.
Later in the episode. Yeah, so she comes in and Kirby sees her and very attracted and everything, and they make a deal that if Kirby can get a B, then he'll convince Roz to go to the prom with him. Which, I mean, a date with Roz to the prom, that would motivate even the strongest-willed of men, you know? And then, obviously, in turn, in exchange for that, he then needs to get the Bruce Springsteen tickets for her.
There's a joke there that I didn't get for the longest time, or at least I was thinking about it the wrong way round. And it's... Kirby says something like, "Oh, but how are you going to convince Roz to go out to the prom with me?"
Yeah.
And Frasier says, "Oh, leave that with me and Mr. Bruce Springsteen." And then Kirby goes, "The boss."
Yeah.
And then Frasier's like, "No, Bruce Springsteen," right? I didn't get that because I didn't know that Bruce Springsteen was known as the boss.
He's known as the boss, yeah.
So, like, obviously the joke there is that Frasier doesn't know that,
Uh-huh.
and he thinks that Kirby thinks that their boss is called Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
Whereas I didn't know that he was called the boss either. So I thought the joke was that Kirby thought that their boss was called Bruce Springsteen.
No.
So yeah, that's one of the jokes in Frasier that I just did not get for the longest time.
Fun, yeah.
But it is funny.
It is really funny because it's one of those. It's one of the points where the lines between their understanding are crossed the opposite direction.
Kirby
knows what's going on,
and Frasier doesn't. Yeah.
So I really love that. And yeah, so all of this back and forward and underhanded deal making and everything, it builds up to this last scene where they all go out for dinner, unintentionally together. Frasier and Claire go on their date, and Kirby and all of his friends are just back from the prom, I think, or just
Probably
going to the prom,
on their way to prom.
and Roz is there as well, and it's I love this scene. It's so good. Kirby and Roz are just such a great pairing. He sort of says, "Hey Roz, could you get us some drinks?" She's like, "Now listen, no, there will be no drinking, there will be no hand holding, there will be no touching, there will be and all this back and forwards." And she's, what is it Kirby says, like, "Oh wow, you're a real prude, huh?" Roz like, "Yes I am."
It's so funny.
So they're all at the same restaurant, and then Lana comes in and sees Frasier and Claire, says hi and everything, and then goes over to see Kirby. And what is it she shouts? It's like, you tramp or something.
It's like it cuts back to Frasier and Claire.
Yeah.
And then they say something about like, "Oh, it's really nice. Like Lana just cares so much about Kirby and just
Yeah.
loves him so much. And it's really good that she was being so supportive of him doing so well." And then you just hear her scream like, "What do you mean she's with you?"
Oh, yeah.
From the other side of the restaurant.
And it's like this. I love the like second that it takes Frasier to realize what's going on. It's like, "Oh no, Roz!" And here it goes over. And yeah, everyone's shouting at each other. Lana thinks that Roz is a prostitute, and all his friends get involved as well. But it's like, what is it? You're giving him sex, and it's like, "I'm getting sex," and his friend's
"Dude,
like, "You're getting sex." Just all these like little hysterical interactions are just amazing, all while they're all shouting at each other. And
I really like that Kirby orders for Roz.
Oh yeah.
And then Roz says like, "Never order for your date. It's like rookie mistake. Don't do it. It's cheesy. Women hate it." And then it immediately cuts back to Frasier ordering for Claire.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And the waiter as well, when Kirby does order, he's like, "Yeah, we'll have I'll have a Coke and the lady will have the same." And then Roz says the lady will have hers with a Jack Daniels in it. And I love that the waiter gives her like a little wink and a finger gun. Like he knows what's going on.
Yeah.
Which is just like a really subtle little thing, but I love it. No, this whole scene is hysterical.
Yeah.
Kirby is, he's one of my favorite characters. I wish he was more recurring than he is. I would have loved to seen him crop up here and there. His roles later on, he's kind of doing random jobs.
Yeah.
Sideways related to Frasier and Niles. I would have loved if that continued. Mm-hmm. Like if he cropped up as like the gardener, or if he was hired to be the cleaner once Daphne stops
actually, that could have been really
like
funny.
That I think would be great.
Hired him to come around, and because there's a few times we get guest characters kind of in the same way that we had
Jennifer Coolidge
in the last disc, where they come in to be like the cleaner to take over when Daphne moves out, but we never get like a permanent replacement. I don't think there's even anyone that's in for more than one episode.
No, I don't think so.
So there would have been the potential there to have a recurring character, not like a new main character, but like a good recurring character. Kirby potentially could have fit that. That could have been fun.
I think that would have been really funny.
It would have been
a
complete mismatch, but it would have been funny.
No, it's just amazing. And again, more Patricia Clarkson, more Gene Smart. Mm-hmm. It's just amazing guest stars. It's a really solid episode. It's got a lot of great moments, a lot of these like misunderstandings and hilarious little comments, and it's so good. I love it. I think it's really, really strong, and it's Frasier back on form. This last disc, I think, is what season 8 should have been the whole way through.
Yeah,
and I'm kind of sad that it's not. You know, we could have had these episodes towards the start of the season, and we could have had Lana and Claire and Kirby recurring throughout this season,
mm-hmm.
but we didn't.
We just get them at the end.
Just get them right at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of bitter that that's the case, but nonetheless, I still gave it another full 5 cups.
Another 5. I'm actually going to bump this one up a little bit higher than the last one and give it a 4.
4, okay.
I still don't quite think I could give it a 5, but yeah. I think this is a strong episode. I think this is a good one.
You're worrying me. I feel like I'm being too generous now.
No, I don't think you are. I think I'm maybe being a little bit cruel.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not.
The guest stars make these episodes. I just think they're so good.
They do.
Yeah. The 2-parter I think is well paced as well. It doesn't feel like a long 2-parter. It doesn't feel like it's stretched out at all. All the beats are where they should be throughout the episode. You know, we've got the surprise party, we've got the tutoring takes up the middle part of the episode, and then we've got the conclusion where Kirby passes, and then we get the restaurant as the reward, and that's that. It all is paced just so well, and it's one that I think we've criticized a couple of the 2-parters for, is just stretching out plot points where they just didn't need to be stretched out. This one kind of gets over that problem really well, and with the help of just some
very good guest stars.
Great guest stars. They're great. I love them. Want to move on? I don't think we've got any guest callers or anything.
No, we've just got more of the same guest stars that we've already talked about. As wonderful as they are.
The next episode, A Day in May. I was a little bit disappointed by, if I'm being honest, because I always remember this episode as being really great.
Yeah.
But rewatching it,
I don't like it. I don't think it's particularly good.
The tone of the episode is very up and down.
I think there's so much potential in a lot of it that's really unfulfilled.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of frustrating. Like we've got 3 plots, really. It's I suppose kind of sort of slice of life, you could call it. How it's just sort of like taking just like a look at the lives of we've got Martin out doing something, which we'll get to. It's kind of ambiguous as to where he is at the beginning, and then it's explained a bit later on.
Yeah.
Daphne and Niles go out to the dog park, and Frasier and Lana stop. They're on their way somewhere, and then they need to stop off to. Where are they going? I can't remember where they're going. They're going somewhere.
He's getting a lift to go and see Claire, I think.
No, maybe.
Is he not? Is that not what he's doing?
Can't remember. But yeah, they need to stop off to help Lana sell a house.
Yeah,
as is her job. And I think each one kind of has aspects that are interesting. And I mean, Martin's definitely isn't funny. As it turns out, he is going to the parole hearing of the man that shot him.
Yeah.
And it's not fun, but it's really quite interesting
to
watch.
Easily the best of the 3 segments.
I think so.
I would say. It's really well built up. It's really well...
Because you don't know where he is.
Yeah, it's kept very ambiguous throughout.
He said, like, they mentioned they don't know where he is. He got up, Eddie's still in the flat. Martin's not there. They don't know where he is. Eventually, they do call him, and he says, like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I left. I felt like going to the
dog track." Says, yeah.
But you can see on the phone he's sitting in like a little waiting area, like a little cafeteria or something.
Yeah.
He's wearing a suit, and he kind of pretends to talk to, like, tries to like buy tickets. Would you call it tickets?
Like bet slips, I guess.
To place a bet at the dog track, and is very clearly lying, but you still don't know where he is. And then we meet Joanna,
one of the two,
who turns out is the mother of the man that that shot him.
But again, even
then, it's
when
not
she's
explained.
Introduced. It's just this woman that he's talking to, and he's got history with, and you're kind of like, well, what's going on here?
They know each other. They're clearly not friendly. She kind of says, like, "Oh, I felt like calling to see how you were, but decided against it." And he kind of says, like, "Yeah, I appreciate that." And then it's clearly very awkward.
Yeah.
And then we do get the explanation where we realize, like, it's the parole hearing. We kind of get the end of it where he's talking about, he's wanting to get out of prison on good behavior, and he's been taking all these classes and whatever. And then Martin refuses to speak. They basically ask if he has anything to say, and he just says he doesn't. And I guess there's kind of the implication that it's because he doesn't say something like, "Oh, I'm glad that he's bettering himself and I forgive him," is the reason that he's staying in prison.
Yeah.
Obviously they don't say that outright, but it's certainly pretty strongly implied that Martin has the position there where he could let him have the parole, and he chooses not to.
I think it's some of the best acting from John Mahoney in this episode, despite probably the shortest segment of the 3.
Yeah, you just get a few like minute-long scenes that kind of cuts back and forth.
I think the scene where they're at the hearing itself, and as you say, he gets the opportunity to say something, and he kind of stands up and he takes a second and he says, like, he sits down again and says, like, I have nothing to say. It's phenomenal acting from John Mahoney. Just the way, the emotions that he portrays, and like his thought processes. You can see him thinking, is it time to forgive him? It's almost implied that this isn't the first parole hearing that they've been to, or at least I kind of get that impression.
Presumably he did it every year.
Yeah. And just when you know what Martin's like, he's a very real person, and he's very much about forgiveness and all that. But when it's something that happened to him, when that young man took away his whole life, took away his freedom, he's just not prepared to forgive him.
Yeah.
And John Mahoney shows all that through one line.
He really sells it.
It's incredible. It's really, really solid, and just...
I think it's interesting that he goes every year. It's not really something I had thought about before, but he goes every year. So presumably he's kind of preparing himself. Sooner or later he's going to go, and he's going to feel ready to forgive the guy. Or
the guy's going to get away. He's going to get his parole.
Or he's going to get his parole
Martin,
one way or the other, and he wants to know that. But the fact that he goes and chooses not to say anything. Yeah. The only other person there is the guy's mum.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting.
There's another bit, and it's more from a production side of thing rather than like plot within the episode, but we don't actually find out what's going on concretely until after Martin is sat back down. Because we have this guy, and he says he's in prison, and he's whatever, and it's implied and everything, and he apologizes to Martin, and then Martin has the opportunity to say something, and he sits back down, and it's only then when we go back to the parole board that they say, we have decided not to grant you parole because of your crime of shooting a police officer in an attempt of armed robbery.
Yeah.
And it's only at that point that it all these different pieces fit together. You see everything that's going on, everything that's happened, and you're like, for sure that's what it is, and that's why Martin's been acting the way he has, and it's just really well done, and I would have loved to see a whole episode exploring that more, I think. I don't know if you could justify stretching it out too long.
I don't know. I don't think there's a way that you could have a whole episode about that and have it stay a comedy.
Yeah, I mean,
it'd be very difficult to give it the
levity.
Yeah, it wouldn't. I don't think it would work trying to give it any more than it has here. Yeah, I think that works really well. I think it's a shame that the rest of the episode's not very good.
The rest of the episode is very boring. We've got Daphne and Niles at the dog park. Niles is jealous of one of Jim, one of Daphne's friends who they knows
from the dog park.
He's got a big, well-trained dog. I don't know what it is. It's not a Rottweiler.
I would have said it looked like a Great Dane, but it's not. It's not a Great Dane.
It's not a Great Dane, I don't think. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm afraid I don't really know much about dogs.
Yeah, it's a big, strong-looking dog, and Niles makes the joke that he's maybe eating Eddie. But other than that, and then Niles kind of manipulates Daphne into not coming to the park anymore because he's jealous of Jim, and it's just a bit.
It's just boring.
Yeah,
I think this is the first season that they are a couple, and just going the route of very generic storyline of like, oh, he's getting a bit jealous, and then it turns out he doesn't actually have a reason to be jealous.
Yeah,
is very cliched, and it's not very interesting. It doesn't lend itself to any really funny jokes, other than, I guess, there's sort of the comparison of Niles is sitting with Eddie and kind of makes the joke that Eddie would also be jealous of Tank the dog because he's better trained and therefore he's kind of flashy, and he's sort of Jim's showing off. It's just not very interesting. It's not very funny.
It's like a mini-sode. It's like one of those mini internet episodes that you'd get after the season's done or building up to the season. It's it's not great. And then we've got Frasier and Lana trying to sell the house from some sad sack who's been depressed for the last 15 months after his wife left him and his kids left him, and God, I can't see why. What an interesting fellow. Yeah. He's just a generic, like, miserable, sad, slow-spoken guy. It's just not fun. They knock over his daughter's like ice cream stick house that she made at camp, and then they have to rebuild it. I like the little mention of when Lana's eating the popsicle. Is that what they call them in America? Popsicle. And Frasier says, like, oh, there's a time that I would have paid $1,000 to watch you eat a popsicle. And then she bites it off. Yeah. And I love that little banter. I love them as friends. Just the two of them really evolve quite nicely.
They do work well as friends. They even say something about them being friends. Lana says something about the two of them being friends, and Frasier says, like, oh, is that what we are? Are we friends? And she says, like, yeah, of course we are.
Yeah.
And it's nice because they do work as friends.
I think they do. I really think they do.
And I have mixed feelings about where we go in the next episode.
Yeah.
But
let's get to the next episode, because I think this episode is probably we've said enough about it.
Not super interesting.
More than a 1, did you give it?
I gave it a 2.
A 2, okay.
I couldn't quite give it a 1 because I think there's a lot of strength in the scenes with Martin going to the parole hearing. I think it's very well acted, and I think it's a really interesting concept that we're getting that. It's a shame that they don't do more with it, but also I don't know how much more they could do without it being weird. Like, they couldn't make it funny.
No,
it wouldn't work if they tried
not.
to make it funny.
Definitely not.
And being a comedy, you can't give that much time to something if you're not going to at least make a few jokes. So, I don't know how they could have done more, but I kind of wish they had done more.
Almost as if that had been the only B plot, and we'd had something else.
Yeah.
To balance the sincerity of that section. So if we had a particularly funny episode on the other end, and we were cutting back and forward to that, I think we'd get a bit more of a kind of comparison.
Yeah.
We'd be
It'd be a bit more punchy if you when you get the emotional hit of like realizing what it is that Martin's doing.
Sort of whiplash back and forward.
Yeah, if the other bits had been funnier, it maybe would have had more impact.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so I gave it a
2. I was a little bit more kind. I gave it a 3.
Yeah.
And I think that's mostly due to Martin's sections. I think there are another couple of little jokes here and there that are quite kind of funny. The old couple that come to view the home when Frasier's sitting eating his ice lolly, and he's got a bit of cut out a bit of card like paper and put it over himself to stop it spilling,
like a poncho.
Yeah, and they think he's a wee child, and they're sort of talking down to him.
Yeah.
Are you building a little icicle stand or whatever it is they say?
Yeah.
It's really funny. So there's little bits and pieces that kind of save it from being rated too low, but it's again not great. Curious to see what you think of the finale. The Cranes Go Caribbean. We have again another cliffhanger. It leads into the next series. We have the first half of the episode where Frasier is planning a trip to Belize. Bellissimo.
Yeah.
Why did I think Bali?
I don't know. I mean, they're kind of similar names.
Yeah, but I should have known that. Something else. Something else I was watching had something to do with Bali.
I don't know.
Okay, yeah, Belize. Sorry, my bad. And he wants to take Claire away. They've been dating for however long, and they deserve a trip. And Niles is very jealous, I guess. He's a bit envious of them going away, but he's got plans with Daphne celebrating their first anniversary. They're going to fill a bathtub full of champagne and then spend the night in it. Sounds fizzy.
That sounds really unpleasant.
It does not.
I would not want to be submerged
Sticky.
in something fizzy. Yeah, it would get sticky. It would be... Especially considering it's suggested what they're going to be doing in the champagne.
Yeah.
It's just a waste of champagne. You can't drink it after that. Well, you shouldn't drink it.
I mean, you shouldn't.
Oh, yeah, you definitely shouldn't. Yeah, I don't think you should drink any liquid that you've been naked in.
Yeah.
Frankly.
Consider me a prude, but...
yeah. Controversial opinion, but I don't think you should bathe in something and then drink it.
Yeah, I quite agree. We saw what happened with the bathwater. All the e-girl bathwater.
Well, that wasn't for drinking. That was for vaping. I don't know if it was actually for vaping.
It wasn't meant for anything.
Somebody vaped it.
Somebody drank it as well. I'm pretty sure they got ill.
Do you think you could vape champagne?
Again, I don't think you should.
No.
I think you could. Vape anything.
Yeah. You could probably vape champagne.
This conversation is getting away from us, and I'm concerned as to where it's going to go next. So I'm going to move on.
Yeah.
Daphne overhears them talking about Belize, and she thinks the conversation is for them, for Niles and Daphne to go away. So when she brings it up with Niles is like, oh, she's so excited, I'm just going to agree to take her to Belize. There's a bit of back and forward with Claire as well. She's not sure if they're ready to go away. And then Frasier's not sure if they're ready to go away. There's a great little scene where they're talking to each other, and it's like, do you think we should go? It's like, I don't know. Do you think we should go? It's like, I don't know. Yeah. And they don't really know what's happening anymore. And then Niles claims the tickets, but then Claire decides she does want to go, and Martin comes in and he reveals that he and Duke are going to Belize.
They're going fishing.
They're going for a fishing trip. So yeah, it's the Cranes Go Caribbean. They all decide to go in the end. During all this as well, we get a great little scene with Roz and Ariel, her Dalmatian, comes in, and I think it must be the first time that she's seen Frasier and Niles.
I guess, yeah.
Because she comes in, and it's a really funny little scene of the two boys kind of standing there staring at the dog, and Roz is trying to get him to say hello, and it's like, say hello, hello, say hello, hello, say hello. And Frasier and Niles are like, okay, we get it, stop. It's just, I don't know, it's just the misunderstanding of what's going on, that they think that she's talking to them, but she's talking to the dog. Yeah. It's just really weird, but it's so funny.
I'm pretty sure you did that with your dog the first time I met Harry.
Probably.
But to be fair, at that point he was a puppy, and he was
small.
You could pick him up and do it, which was at least funnier than trying to do it with a full-grown dog.
Yeah, Dalmatians are big dogs as well. They get big. No, I just it's not irrelevant, but it's really funny. It's the only scene we get with Roz this episode as well. So they head out to Belize, but not before Frasier manages to miss the plane. Frasier and Claire manage to miss the plane, thanks to Lana's poor driving.
Yeah.
She's giving them a lift and crashes into the car in front of her because she's not paying attention, and smoking while she's driving as well, and it's all just a mess. But then things go from bad to worse because they missed the flight. They ended up missing the connecting flight. They had to get a small charter plane out to the hotel, which was also delayed because the pilot had to dust some crops on the way.
Yeah, which is funny.
And they lost the luggage. The hotel is less than helpful, which seems... I feel like Frasier would book a pretty highly rated hotel.
He blames the hotel, which is... He's I think very rude to the hotel staff and the restaurant staff, because he's having a bad time, and maybe they're not being particularly helpful, but he's very even though, I mean, he's yelling at them, and I know that the reason he's yelling at them is because his ears have been clogged by the flight or whatever. But yeah, he seems very rude, and I hate people being rude.
I do normally as well, but to be honest with you, I think the hotel staff seem pretty unhelpful. He's giving them a legitimate complaint that they've lost his luggage.
Oh, the airline,
because the luggage should have come in, or is it not? It hasn't been delivered yet.
Oh, it was because it was on all the different airlines, and one of them lost the luggage.
But then the room's not ready.
Oh, his room was given away.
It was given away because the flight was late, which they should have known, really.
Yeah.
And then he tries to get dinner, and they don't have any fish available, even though the ocean's right there. I think that's a justified criticism. He claims it's the best fish restaurant in Belize.
Yeah.
And they don't have any fish. Yeah. All they have is steak. I get it. I think I'd be pretty annoyed as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's played off very much as Frasier being Frasier and just expecting the world and getting less than that. Meanwhile, everyone else is having a great time. Daphne and Niles are out sunbathing naked. Martin and Duke have caught a full trunkload of fish. We don't see Duke, which is sad.
Yeah. I
would have liked if we'd had a little guest spot with Duke there, but he's off in the room, having been sunburnt, I think they say.
Yeah.
And it all kind of leads up to Claire having been less than impressed by Frasier throughout the episode, or at least that's how it's implied. And it turns out that she feels like he's annoyed at her as well.
Yeah.
And he feels like it was a mistake coming with her. When that's not the case at all. It was just all these other factors that resulted in it. And it ends with them sleeping together, and then Frasier having a dream about someone else, namely Lana.
Yeah.
Which is, you're kind of like, why? Claire's so perfect for you.
Yeah.
Why you got to ruin it? And he says as much to Lilith on the phone. We get a little BB Newirth cameo.
Yeah.
Which I completely forgot about, actually.
I love
watching it. But it's actually a really nice little cameo. It works.
Yeah.
It works. And they have a nice little conversation, and she kind of says, like, well, you're just kind of looking for reasons to get out of it. You know, do you know how to be happy, kind of thing? Just accept it and roll with it. You like to be challenged, but you just can't accept being happy. And it's this really kind of almost meta conversation of how Frasier's been portrayed for the last few seasons.
Yeah.
Of him sabotaging himself in relationships and doing all these things wrong. All the stuff that we've complained about in recent memory. And it gives a bit more realism to that and justification to that, which we do explore in the next couple of episodes even further. But this is left on a bit of a cliffhanger. What's he going to do? Who's he going to choose?
Yeah.
How's he going to get his luggage back from Belize? And it's a really good finale, I think.
Yeah.
It's good fun. It's a bit different.
I like how it's rounded out. I really like a kind of location episode.
Yeah.
I like that they have this excuse of the whole Crane family going to the Caribbean together. Like, turns out it's, by accident, but I think it's very funny. I think having Daphne and Niles and Martin all there is really good. I think the episode suffers a little bit being a part of the whole Frasier, Claire versus Lana arc. And I don't like how Frasier acts. I think he's being so rude. He's like shouting at the waiters, and it's like, it's not their fault that they've run out of fish.
I know.
It's like, yeah, I know you'd be annoyed at the restaurant. Like, yeah, maybe the restaurant's not, prepared enough, but it's not the waiter's fault. Don't shout at the waiter in front of people. Like, just get a grip, man.
I guess.
And especially if you're on holiday with your girlfriend, don't be miserable because the restaurant's, just like have a drink and have something.
But at the same
to eat
time, you want it
relax.
to be nice. You're taking your girlfriend away.
Yeah.
You want it to be nice.
Yeah.
So I take it you did not rank it as highly as
I don't rank it very highly, no. I give it a 2.
Oh, only a 2?
Because I think there's so much potential with like the whole family being in the Caribbean. And I think it's a shame that the most fun bits of the episode are like very briefly touched on. And it's Daphne and Niles and Martin.
I mean, I think they get enough airtime here.
I don't think it's that much.
Maybe not, but I think it works better as like a sort of side joke. The things like them naked sunbathing, and then Martin kind of pops in with a one-liner saying, "Oh yeah, make sure you keep an eye out for whoever down at his little shack on the beach, because he takes photos of the tourists and puts the best one up on the wall."
Yeah.
And they kind of look at each other with shock.
Oh god. And then they need to go back and steal it. That's
the little post credits is stealing the photo back. I like that they have just sort of a chance to jump in with these little humorous moments while Frasier's kind of sorting himself out. No, I ranked it much higher. I gave it a 4.
Yeah.
I gave it a 4. I did originally kind of think I was going to give it a 5, but it dips a little bit in the middle. I think once they get to Belize and Frasier's doing his classic Frasier arguing and being miserable and everything, it dips just a little bit, even though I do feel he is justified in his annoyance for the most part. I feel like we're getting just a little bit off track, and we could have done better with some more humor injected in that in that little sequence.
Yeah.
But hey ho, what can you do?
Yeah.
That's the end of season 8.
It's the end of season 8.
We're left on a cliffhanger. We will still be in Belize when we get back for season 9 in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah.
How about you give us your highlights for the disc, and then your highlights for the season?
Oh God, I don't know. I might just have to go for a couple of guest stars and say the highlight for this disc is Fisher Stevens.
Okay.
I think he's a great little character. I think he's really funny. I would absolutely watch a show that was like where he was the main character.
Yeah.
His character of like being this kind of weird sort of investigating psychics working at a university type of character. I would absolutely watch that. And I love him in this. And I think for the season overall, my highlight is probably Dr. Tewksbury.
Okay.
And Renee Auberjonois. I think he's so funny. In this, he makes a joke about Daphne and Niles, because he thinks that Daphne is Niles' patient, and says like, "Oh, he needs to set clearer boundaries with his patients. I learned that from years of private practice." And then Roz says like, "Oh, that's not his patient. That's his girlfriend." And he goes like, "Oh, well then, whether he's right or wrong, he's wrong." And I learned that from years of marriage.
Yeah.
And he's very funny, and I like we don't see that when he's with Frasier, that he's like very quick-witted and and I like that in this episode. But I think in the episode that he's in this disc, I just think he's a fun character.
He is. Now I'm thinking, right, because I do love Kirby. I do love the introduction of Kirby here.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I love the introduction of Claire.
Yeah.
And the recurrence of Lana. But I think I'm going to save that for next week. Well, next disc in a couple of weeks' time, because I know Kirby has some really funny one-liners coming up.
Yeah.
Not that he doesn't here,
yeah,
but some particularly funny ones. So I think I'm going to save that for next week. And so for this disc, I'm going to give it to John Mahoney in A Day in May. Just the whole sequence. I think he's just absolutely nails it, and it's really quite emotional watching it when once you realize what's going on, and once you realize just how much it means to the character. And John Mahoney just absolutely nailing it once again. I think that has to be my disc highlight. As for season highlight, I honestly don't know, because I could go for the more generic stuff like Daphne's arc, and I guess the realism and sort of treatment of their relationship, but I guess that's a bit obvious. I don't know. Maybe just the reintroduction of Lana and Jean Smart.
Yeah,
you've had Dr. Tewksbury. Yeah, I'll take Lana.
Fair enough.
And the evolution of her character as well. As we've said, it's she goes from this one-dimensional guest character to being pretty well fleshed out recurring character.
Yeah.
And really just a good friend to Frasier. So I like that.
Yeah,
I like that a lot. So yes, that's what I'm going to go with for my season highlight, even if it isn't the last disc.
Yeah. Cool.
There we have it.
Yeah.
Got a special bonus episode coming up next week.
We do. I'm so excited about next week's bonus episode.
It's a little bit off the beaten path.
It's going to be a lot of fun, I think. It's about as close as we can get to a Halloween special, really.
Yeah. We figured, why not? It's October.
Yeah.
We'll do something a bit on the horror side of things. So we will all will be revealed next week.
Yeah.
That's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, be back with season 9.
Unfortunately, going into season 9, we're saying goodbye to one of the most important characters on the show. Well, in a way, not so much the character, But Cranes Go Caribbean was the last appearance of Moose, the
Was
dog,
it?
playing Eddie.
Really?
From now on, he's entirely played by Enzo,
I didn't realise that.
which is a shame.
Oh, poor Moose.
Poor Moose.
He didn't die until...
He didn't. No. I
Later,
think
though.
I'm assuming he just got old enough that
Did
he
he
couldn't
retire?
He couldn't act. He
Aw.
just retired. Yeah, it was quite a while after the show had ended before Moose
pass.
died. But
Poor Eddie. Poor Moose.
yeah,
I love Moose.
yeah,
Forever in our hearts.
I know.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
I'm excited to get into season 9.
I
think
think season 9 is going to be an improvement over season 8.
Mm-hmm.
All in. I think it's going to be a higher average. Thinking of specific episodes, I know there's at least a few that are very strong.
I like the opening of season 9.
The
And the-
opening couple episodes are great.
and the continuation of this little arc.
Yeah.
I like. We get Gertrude and Simon back,
Yeah.
which is a shame around the halfway mark.
Yeah.
But at the same time, in those same episodes, we get the introduction. Well, the on-screen introduction of Cam Winston
Cam Winston.
instead of just hearing about him as we did in season 7.
Yeah.
Now we actually get him, and that lends to a few episodes, and he's really good.
He is
in
good.
Those.
He is very good.
Yeah, I think there's some strong ones.
Room Full of Heroes is season 9, I think.
Yeah,
That's a Halloween episode.
as a Halloween episode.
That's going to come out when we do Halloween.
It will
Is
be.
it not?
That'll pretty much
That'll
be the week of Halloween.
Oh,
Oh.
good. Wonder if we could tie that in. We could come in costume. Record in costume.
That'll work really well for an audio format. That'll be great.
What else have we got in season 9?
We've got Brian Cox,
Brian Cox,
Dundee's own Brian Cox at the end.
who's being celebrated at the moment.
He is.
in
He's
Dundee.
actually in Dundee as
He
we're
is.
recording this.
Yeah. Wonder if we could get him on to talk about.
I don't know.
Probably not. I don't think he'd want to come into
We've kind
this
of
tiny little room. And
we've kind of gotten in with Brian Cox, I guess.
do we?
Do you think Daniel is still in touch with Brian Cox?
I don't know. Could ask.
Maybe.
Yeah, that'd be funny. One of our friends starred alongside Brian Cox in a little TV show that he did.
Yeah.
Set in our hometown.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. We could try.
Maybe.
He's a big Mr. Hollywood
He
out
is,
in America
yeah,
nowadays.
especially with Succession being quite so. I mean, he's been popular because he's been so many things for,
I've not watched
for
Succession.
years. No, neither have I. Heard lots of great things.
Yeah.
It got parodied on The Simpsons not that long ago.
Did it?
Yeah, there was like a Succession.
that's how
there
you
was
know
like
you've
an
made it.
episode that was like a Succession parody, which is
It was
wild.
To be fair, it was the same with Game of Thrones. It was like everyone was talking about it for about 4 or 5 seasons before I finally sat down and watched it and was like, I should have watched this sooner.
Yeah.
And then regretted watching it ever.
Yep.
At all.
Yeah.
Poor Game of Thrones. Let's hope that Frasier's reboot and ending does not end the same way. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Right.
Okay.
Have a great day, everyone. Good mental health. And thank you for listening. This has been a Happy Brothers podcast. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at HappyBrosPod.
All opinions are our own, and as always, special thanks to Leah O'Donnell for the show's artwork.